The Trudeau I expected was not the Trudeau that I got.
How was it different?
I expected him to be more arrogant, and he was almost shy. I expected
he was shy. Yes.
I didn't.
In a way.
That.
In a way. Yeah.
I didn't realize how ambitious he was, how early.
Well, I was surprised, especially about the last. I didn't realize he was so ambitious to go into public life, and this was his ambition since he was 15, 16, 17, 18. And he wrote it in his diary, and he told it to his friends, and shared it with his mother and with many other people. It's a surprising ambition, and I think it was one of the reasons that he was such a disciplined individual.
Effortless scholar.
Absolutely effortless. He must have had a remarkable mind. He clearly had a very, very good memory. He listened so intensely. People would talk later about his remarkable elephantine memory, but memory depends on listening. And I think what happened with Trudeau was, right from his earliest years, he listened to his teachers, he listened to everybody, he tried to accumulate as much knowledge as he possibly could. And in doing so, he gave himself an enormous advantage later on, but he was able to do it because of this extraordinary discipline that he had.
You think of Trudeau, you think of him, 68, kissing women and Trudeau mania. I remember all that, the wild swinging bachelor, but quite the opposite, really. He was like, what, a 27-year-old version? I know lots being.
Well, he was a swinging bachelor by the mid-60s. I would say that part is true.
But he was a slow starter there.
He was a very slow starter. But I think that we have to take into account the time and place. He was from upper class, French Canadian Catholic family, which was very traditional and conservative. The women he dated were from the same kind of background. He'd had this very, very intense education at Brebeuf. He has one hilarious conversation with an American priest at Brebeuf who says that the American schools are terrible. The young women participate in sex, and this is American way, and this is never going to happen in Quebec. He's horrified at this, and at that time he was going out with a American girl that he had met at Old Orchard Beach in Maine, and he worries about her being a little bit too advanced, and that she was naughty, perhaps more than she should be, which, when you think of it, is a rather odd perspective for a 22-year-old male to have.
The word that keeps coming up the whole way through this is contradictory. Mm-hmm. Sometimes he contradicts himself. He starts off, he's a nationalist at one point, and then he becomes like the uber-federalist. He's anti-Semitic early on, then goes completely the opposite way. Mm-hmm. He's very conservative, yet he ushers in as justice minister, the bedrooms of the nation, state has no business. All this contradictory stuff, yet he seems to be able to say, well, that's the way it is, and shrug it off, as only Trudeau could.
That's right. Well, he had self-confidence in his opinions, and he thought he got to them rationally, even though many of them were emotional, as you suggest. He changed, but of course, so did Quebec, just enormously through that entire period. Quebec had the highest percentage of church-going people in North America, indeed, I'm sure the Western world, because Europe wasn't so great. Up through the 50s. Then in the 60s it drops to be the lowest in North America. So he reflects the times, although he remains a believer, in that they move towards a secular society so quickly. Now he's moved away from his conservative Catholicism by the later 40s, mainly through his education in the States and Great Britain and in France. In the 50s, he comes back and he's not opposed strongly to the nationalists, but then in terms of the debate as it emerges, he begins to see nationalism as suffocating, as limiting, and intellectually and emotionally both. He reacts against it. The nationalists and the way they express themselves seem to him to be making Quebec intellectual life into one where you ate, breathed, slept, the Quebec question. And he didn't think that should be the predominant political concern at the time. So there's contradictions and change reflecting the society, but he is a person who thought when he did change his mind that he had come to that decision rationally, even if perhaps it doesn't seem so fast.
He's always been a distant figure. Mm-hmm. And it was like we almost didn't want, and he didn't want, but I didn't realize that idea of being a man of mystery, he started that as a teenager.
Well, he was a very good actor. And at the summer camp, which was an English summer camp, he was voted the best actor. And with Trudeau, there's a careful construction of the persona, of how you look, of what you wear. You know, he staged the famous pirouette, according to his aides. He carefully planned what he would do in his public appearances, and what seemed spontaneous could be very thought through. And in terms of the air of mystery, he thought early on that if you're intriguing, if you're an enigma, you fascinate.
I can't wait for the second volume of this. It's he just gets more interesting. The more you go into it, the more interesting he gets.
Thanks very much. He is a very interesting man.
The book is Citizen of the World, The Life of Pierre Elliott Trudeau, Volume 1, 1919 to 1968. Ends with him on the podium becoming leader of the Liberals. I've been speaking with the author John English, and Citizen of the World is published by Knopf Canada.